Welcome in, everybody. This is the last version of HR Lunch Bunch for the 2025 year, and this is the December month, and we are talking about succeeding as an HR department of one. So pretty much everybody here, nope, you're not kicked out. You're all just fine. You're here. We are talking about succeeding as an HR department of one. My name is Deborah Jeffries, and I serve as the Vice President of HR Answers. I've worked here for a number of years, and this is a program that we do on the first Wednesday of every month. And it is intended to be a discussion. It is intended to pick a topic, and if you have some topics that you think might be beneficial for us to explore into next year, I would encourage you to share them in the chat box. It is open for you as one method of communicating during our program today. But I have not solidified our topics for next year at all. I'm probably a little behind, I'll be honest with you. Next month, we will talk about kind of trends and topics and things that we should be concerned about or focused on into 2026. So that is set for January. But other than that, I'm an open book in terms of ideas and suggestions. So I welcome your ideas because that might help navigate where we can take this thing. So whether that's bringing in a guest or whether that's something we facilitate ourselves here at HR Answers, we're more than happy to do so. As I was saying, we've been doing this for a number of years, and it really is intended to be a discussion. Many of us are members of SHRM and other HR-related programs, associations, and whatnot. We might go for a luncheon or a meeting. We don't always get to actually sit down and kind of delve into something. Whether I've had a guest or whether or not we've done it, depending on who arrives at any given Wednesday of the first of the month, uh, depends on how the topic kind of goes and how the conversation unfolds. But with today's topic, I did definitely put together a PowerPoint, which you will all have the ability to have sent to you post program. The program is recorded so that you can listen to it later if you want or share with others. Those that were not able to attend, sometimes things come up. We all know that HR is a moving target. And so, based on that, sometimes people are vacuuming or driving in their car, and they will listen at a later date, which we welcome. Definitely welcome that. So please feel free to unmute, share your experiences, what's worked for you, especially with this topic. If there are resources, ideas, and suggestions, while I've put some things together, I definitely have some questions for you. I want you to weigh in. Let me know where you would take this when you think about how you've been doing what you've been doing and how you've been able to be successful as an HR department of one. What resources, what avenues have you been able to explore? Where's your trouble spots? So even though I may have put together some material, even if we don't get through everything, that's just fine and hunky dory with me. But it also gives you some resources perhaps to look at after the fact. So with that said, shall we go ahead and get started? So feel free to unmute when and where. Again, use the chat box. And I'm thinking that being a solo HR department is not easy. It has lots of rewarding aspects to it, but that there's probably a lot of things that you could focus on. So I'm thinking, fill in the blank. If you, to be successful, and you could only give me like one answer, okay, maybe two answers. What's like the thing you should be focusing on? What are you're the wearer of many hats. What kinds of things do you focus on? Where are the things that you're prioritizing right here, right now? And again, you can unmute. You don't have to just use the chat box. So things that are popping up in the chat box, strategy, automating and streamlining, absolutely. That would be one of the things that both of those would be things that I would put on the list. And we're getting some love for those answers. We've got documentation, policies, efficiencies, strategies for the organization, So compliance kinds of things, absolutely. And being able to take care of our employees in terms of recognition, rewards, what does that look like? And probably my words, understanding our employees, what really motivates them when we think about the generations in the workplace, when we think about all the different industries that are represented here today. We've got some of everything. We've got profit, not for profit, public sector. And so based on that, the flexibility or the freedom to be working with that with our employees, training materials and what's going to work. Again, whether you have people out in the field, whether you have remote employees, you've got employees coming in every day, whether you've got formal training, safety related training, on the job training. Probably more of your supervisors and managers are having to do more on the job training because we're not necessarily finding people, applicants with everything we're looking for. And and do managers and supervisors understand that that really is going to become more of their job in the future? And then when you think about upskilling, maybe even reskilling, micro learnings to get all the things done that we need to get done for all the employees, are we exploring all those options to take advantage of technology has to offer us in meeting the needs of our employees, let alone how do they learn best and being able to match up with that so that they retain the information that we're providing to them? Good deal. Okay, so those are some nice answers there. Anything else you can think of? Okay. So I'm also thinking that some of you probably have some administrative tasks in addition to all those fun things. Probably have some administrative things that have to get done in there, right? Um, but also probably managing some of your time, right? So how do you get all of this done? Because when truly you're aware of many hats, you've got to do it all. But then how are you getting all of those things done? Who are you tapping into, right? Because being the sole quote person doesn't necessarily mean you're the only one. It just means you're the designated HR person. How are you partnering with your managers and supervisors? Is there any admin support, right? What can that kind of look like? So, next question. Okay, before we get into some of the, I think there are some challenges, but what's your biggest challenge right now as being the HR professional in your organization? And maybe this might help me with topics for next year. Okay, so we've got 9 managers with the logistics of recruiting and hiring. Yeah, it very much overwhelming. And I'm thinking maybe there's also an element of, and you guys tell me, is it kind of lonely being the only HR person? Saw a couple of nods, right? Because one of the things, and now I've seen some yeses, one of the things that, for those of you who are not familiar with, HR Answers has been around for 40 years. I've been with the firm for about 34 plus years of those 40. And one of the things that I know that has been true for us is sometimes we're like just a sounding board for people like you. Because who do you have to talk HR speak with? Right? And so you can talk to some people inside the organization, but sometimes, they're not always tracking with the acronyms or they're not up to date with compliance things. And while they would like to be helpful to you, they're not always a best resource, which is why one of the things that is even in the material today, but we can talk about is like who's in your network? Who are you reaching out to? Who can support you? Who's willing to listen? Who can you bounce ideas off of? Where can you get others in terms of ideas from them with something, an initiative that you're working on or a trouble spot that you've encountered? And it can be hard sometimes when you're head down working on something to always remember to keep cultivating that network, right? So when I look at some of your challenges, um, so it's the position in general, still processing, having like a new president, and understanding what the HR role is. And I think that's a big question in general, and I believe I have that even in the material is how does the organization view HR? Do they see it more as an administrative function? Do they see it as a strategic partner? Because then how is it that you're operating within the organization, which might also then help with prioritizing work or what's the value you bring to the table? Are you constantly doing things to make sure that you're putting yourself out there as here's where I bring value, here's how I bring value on an ongoing basis to whomever, not just the president, maybe it's the CFO, maybe it's the manager, the leadership team as a whole. What all does that look like? Um, Staying up to date on your role, what does that really mean and look like? Let's see, top of my role, others' roles here. Um, I think it's hard enough just to stay on top of your role, let alone others. Onboarding new hires, multiples at the same time. And when you say that, I don't necessarily know exactly what that means. I would say that you're probably not the only person who should be involved in onboarding, right? There's in my world, there's onboarding to the organization, there's onboarding to the department, and there's onboarding to the role, the individual job. HR has a role in onboarding, but so does the manager or the supervisor to the department, who's responsible for that individual once they leave you. So, yes, you have some of that. I personally don't believe you have all of that. And that's where it's like sharing the role. Now, something that I can offer to you that may be helpful to some of you, maybe. Uh, Years ago, I wrote an article on what is HR's role versus what's like a manager and supervisor's role. Because sometimes, and if I'm stepping across a line, feel free to let me know. Sometimes HR has taken care of so many things that sometimes we're also taking care of things that actually belong to managers and supervisors. And that actually adds more to your plate. And you don't need to be doing their job. That's why we have them. And sometimes they say, I don't know how to do that. We need to teach them so that they can continue to do that and be more of a partner with you. And you don't have to do their job. So I created this list because I kept having clients say, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And I'm like, maybe stop. That doesn't actually belong to you. That should be managers or supervisors. And sometimes they don't know that they don't know. Sometimes they've had not so great experiences and you have to clean up their messes. And sometimes I'm guessing there might just be one of you here that has said, it'll just be faster if I do it myself. Just one of you. And so, but then if you keep doing that, what you've actually taught them is they don't have to do it because you'll do it for them. Is anybody guilty of that? Maybe. Like I said, maybe just one of you. So if you have an interest in that list, it might spur some conversation or it might help you prioritize or maybe provide a little boundary lines with you and your managers and supervisors. What really belongs to them? What really belongs to you? And or maybe set some new expectations for everybody because you don't need more on your list of things to do. I'm guessing.
Deborah,
Yeah,
can I just say one of the attendees said something about supporting nine managers.
yeah,
So I think I'm just going to assume that all of us understand the principles that, supervisor's job and managers is their job. But when you're supporting nine managers and they don't know the HR role. um, it takes some transition. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's time and transition, and you're going to have to make that a priority. So I think that's part of what we're talking about with the HR department of one is what are the immediate needs, what are the short-term needs, what's the biggest bang for the buck, is it training managers on how to, and that's where I think resources come in, like HR answers and stuff like that, but it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not easy.
No, it isn't. And I appreciate you saying that because there's so much that's come in through the chat. I can't read the chat at the same time. And yeah, exactly. Exactly. So how can you do that? And you might actually have some managers and supervisors who get it, who know, and then maybe they can help be your advocate, help be the voice, help set the stage for some of that as well. Because you're right, because with some of the other things that are going on in here in terms of things are constantly changing from a compliance standpoint. Thank you, State of Oregon. When you're new to an organization, when you've got other things from a compliance standpoint. Leaves of absence is a huge thing in terms of one of the challenges, and having things that are overlapping, things that are changing, and trying to keep up with all of that, depending on how many employees you have, right? All of those kinds of things. So whether it's a quote paperwork piece or a systems piece, or whether you can get automated in regards to that. Because I think some of the things that I think are some of your biggest challenges can be all the things that you've got to get done from a time management standpoint, let alone let's make sure that we're in compliance. And what does that mean? Not only industry specific, HR specific, and how can we use technology? Someone said automating your systems. What do you currently have, and what could be automated in some fashion or another to help you? How are you using that for yourself to keep yourself on track in terms of like making lists or calendaring things to make sure you're not forgetting things or things are falling behind, let alone taking care of yourself in your own knowledge, self-care to make sure that you're able to continue to be motivated to be doing all of these things. So I look at that as what I call the sanity system. I don't know if it's really a system, but being able to think about how do you plan your time, and what does that look like? And I get understanding that you can put something down as what you're going to do today from a calendar standpoint, and it can go topsy-turvy the second you walk in the door. Anybody relate? But there's also the what's the one thing it absolutely has to get done, or what's the maybe it's not hour by hour, but it's more like by the week, or the target kinds of things, and being able to prepare for that. And so being able to think about what lays ahead for your organization, or again, what's going on in the outside world that might have an impact on your industry. And is that going to be something that you need to pay attention to? And is there anything that you can do or think about in terms of streamlining? From a streamlining standpoint, then is there something from a budget standpoint that you'd like to acquire to be able to do something? So whether that's your payrolling, your HRIS systems, right? Anything that can help you reduce the number of hours that you're spending on anything that's a routine kind of something. So when you're working with your benefits information, just being able to kind of think about it. And I know that some of that is taking a step away, being able to kind of look at something differently, talk with others. If you have an industry association, is others in your industry using something that you also could do? Your network, asking, how are other people handling this? Is there something that you can do or utilize? Because sometimes there's got to be a better way, another way, because the more strategic you can be for the organization, more strategic you can be for yourself, that's going to make all of those things a little bit easier. But it does mean taking a little bit of time to do that. Adding notes. Where are your checklists? Is there things that can be, quote, pre-filled out? Templates that you can create for yourself. Anything you're doing over and over and over and over again, so you're not starting from scratch. And for some of you, you're probably already doing that. Is there something that takes it the next level in some fashion or another? Because your time is extremely valuable, right? So I've got information that's kind of like, hey, let's think time management. So how do you prioritize your time? What is helping you collectively? What tools, resources, items are you using to be able to do that? Because I kind of subscribe a little bit to the what's called the ICE method. That might be kind of a dirty word. But what's important, what can wait, and what's an emergency? How do you guys prioritize your time? How is that helping you in terms of doing things? So Adora says calendaring things. Absolutely. Working against deadlines. Okay, some are able to delegate some things. Okay, especially on the training manuals. Great. Okay, we've got a writer, a tech writer. What else you guys have programs that you're able to use or to-do lists? Okay, we've got some journaling. Shauna, when you say that, is that like you just have bullet points? Is that what that means? Oh,
Hi. Yeah. So bullet journal is like a thing, like you can read up on bullet journal. A lot of people
oh,
call it Bujo, but it's essentially keeping lists and then um, keeping track of what you did that day. Anything that doesn't get done that day gets moved to the next day. Eventually, after so long, if it's been bumped forward and forward and forward and you haven't done it, then it's not important. So it kind of helps prioritize also.
okay. I'm not familiar with that, so that's good to know. I would like something to move all of my things forward for me. But and again, how do you as an individual process information? Because I'm still a little bit of an old school. If I write it down, if I'm writing it and talking about it, I can see it. So for me, that's something. If somebody else is like doing it for me, it doesn't resonate as much for me. So what tools work for you? Because it works really well for one person, doesn't always mean it works well for someone else. So that's why it's like, what works? And you can't just try something once and go, oh, that doesn't work. Sometimes you got to work the system, right? Got to work the process. So Morgan says 100% a to-do list, right? As long as you only have like one list. How many does anybody have like you got six lists going? Okay, someone's not. But then that's right. And so that's hard because our unless you like color code, I don't again, what works? If you're a visual person, color coding or being able to see something or be able to have it up all the time, or it's a minimized item that you can bring up all the time on your computer screen, right? So think about how long something takes, your longer, bigger projects. Are you able to work on something a little bit each day or each week? So sometimes that can be, are you, I'm sure there's nobody here who's a procrastinator. So if that's one of your downsides, you notice that or recognize that about yourself, right? Um, is email ever a problem for anybody? Who has too many emails, right? How do you manage your emails, your incoming correspondence from people? Are you able to like reply to things, refer to other people? Do you just delete it? I had a client once a long time ago who said, I delete everything. If it comes back to me, then I know it was important. I don't know that that might be the best method, but that was their method. So, and some of us didn't grow up with email as a product, an item, a tool. And so being able to understand all the features, right? How many of you have like open office hours or you have an open door policy? Come in anytime. Do any of you protect some of your time? Do you actually put yourself on do not disturb or something that's like okay, we got somebody has a sticky that says this is my high priority today. The time management experts sometimes suggest only have 3 items on your to-do list in any given day. 3, that's it. Because you can actually get that done. It means interruptions can come on and you can tackle those. So what's the one big hairy goal thing that has to be done today? And then what are two other things that you can have happen? So being able to think about, again, how do you work, let alone the people, right? Being able to interact with the people and being able to listen to the people when they have concerns. So do you, how many of you are working in places where you're 24/7? Do I have people who are 24/7? I'm not seeing any emojis or, okay, of one, there's one, okay. So one of the things that I'm often suggesting to people is make sure that you're working when all the people are working. So like the second shift or the third shift, so you can see the people, so they can see you, so that they know that HR is available, is accessible to them. Because sometimes it's like, oh, well, they only work during the 8 to 5 shift. So we never see them. We don't know them. Well, that already puts us in terms of not being able to like build trust, or not being able to be available to listen or to see or to, in some cases also be heard. So being able to think about when and where you are and where the people are, and do they have, you know, are they able to access you? Because where are you spending your time? But where are your time wasters? Where are your priorities? Can you ever say no? Right? But then again, how are you spending time with the people? Not just that they come to you, but is there ever kind of outreach too? And some of you might be afraid to do the outreach because what will that mean? What will they say or do? But being able to have that connection with your people. Because then when we have compliance issues, concerns, trying to make sure we're meeting compliance, the more of that relationship we've built with people. So, and these are just some of the compliance issues. But how are you keeping up with compliance? What are your tools and resources for keeping up with compliance? Because it used to be, way back when, everything had like a certain date and time. Oftentimes it was like at the first of the year, things would come up. Over the course of the last 15 plus years, things are like constantly throughout the year. So how are you staying abreast of the changes and making sure that you're doing your paperwork, filling out forms, compliance with industry, state, federal kinds of things? So I see going to conferences and webinars and things like that. Um, Someone says, I'm very interested in this sort of thing. Mindy's like, yes, please tell me how you're doing it. So um, not only do we have BOLI, not only do we have SHRM, we have employment attorneys, right? Email subscriptions, good. And again, because that's sending things, it's pushing it to you, right? So the ones that you definitely want, right? SHRM is a big one. Um, you use a company called UST. I'm not familiar with UST, Stephanie. Can you tell us any more about that? They're local to Oregon. Does UST stand for something? Because it might, okay, I was just gonna say it might be something that might be be able to be a resource for other people, whether that's a subscription, something you pay for, if it's free, because sometimes there are freebies out there that might be good. Um, and sometimes the employment attorneys will put things together um, that can be helpful to you in that regard as well. Um, Also, sometimes the service providers who are like doing employment posters or things like that, they'll send out things that then at least this is an update. This needs to be done, or you need to post. So making sure that be selective about who you want sending you stuff. But that also can help because they're pushing that information to you. You don't have to always quote, go get it. So select a few of your favorites, like Fisher Phillips is a good employment attorney organization. Baird Lehman is a very good organization here in town. So pick a couple. Also, it's nice to be able to see how they assemble information in terms of how digestible it is, frequency. You'll probably already get lots of emails. How bombarded do you want to be? So those can be helpful to you in terms of um, getting information and staying up to date on those. So you can kind of ask yourself, um, like where are your employees located? So make sure that you're getting information from all of those states, right? Um, when you think about your size, what size are you now, and what size do we anticipate growth? Do we anticipate any changes in terms of that? So you can prepare for any changes. If you're under 50 and you might grow to that, if you're under 100 and you might grow to that, if you're in multiple states, to make sure that you're thoughtful about those payroll taxes, but also how is that going to impact your employee handbook? Are you updating that on a regular basis? You don't always need an employment attorney with an employee handbook, but making sure you're thinking about those. If you're taking on a new business line, what kind of risk might be associated with that? So, working with anybody inside the organization for any of like risk assessments, for maybe you're taking on a new location. You're still staying in the state, but you've got multiple locations. So your business insurance coverages and things like that might be something to participate with. So just being able to think about compliance across the board. If you have a safety director or manager, making sure that you're in tandem with them. Safety may not be under your umbrella. You don't need to do their job, just making sure that you know that there's something, if you can help them or they can help you in terms of information, or making sure that we've checked that box on our quote internal HR audit and we got all those things covered in some fashion. Um, so we've got an update. We get UST services free through our Equifax membership. Oh, okay. Um, it's also referred to as Mineral. Okay. I think Mineral is an HR support services organization, isn't it? Okay. All right. I still want to know what UST stands for. Okay. Good, good, good. So, technology. What kind of technology are you guys utilizing? Because right now, 74% of senior executives have said that digitid digitization. Oh, Joe. Yeah, let's just brutalize that word, Deborah. Digiti Going more digital is a top priority in a variety of ways, not just HR, but across the board. Now, we all have spent probably more than our fair share trying to understand more about how AI can assist. Maybe you even have some policies about how we're using that inside our organization. But the idea of automating things, looking at how it can speed up our processes, our procedures in some fashion or another. But what is it you're using? What's working? What would you recommend to others in the group? And is there anything you would suggest that people avoid because it was a disaster? It didn't work. Any programs, processes, undertakings?
We use Bamboo HR for onboarding, our hiring, like postings, just because it can link to all the other sites. But we do not use the other side of it. We have not tapped into the HR or went any further. So we really are just using it for onboarding, communication, because we do have 70 employees at this site, but I think there's like 150 total within us. So we do like our mass, like, hey, it's open enrollment. Let us know if you have any changes or like stuff like that. Like, hey, Christmas party, RSVP, but we're not using it for like the full HR side of it. We're really just using that front half. which it's nice for the onboarding. It does take a lot off, but it is not, we're not using it to its full potential. So it's nice. It's just, it's not fully used.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. So there's one, and someone said, did I see ADP? Okay. Not fully populated for all the services, but like it for the onboarding. Okay. So no HRIS system at this time, but searching for one. Okay, for one that's fluent in city governments and municipalities. Sometimes words are hard for Deborah. Okay. What else is out there that might be useful from a tech standpoint or automation standpoint? Are you guys doing, how are you handling payroll? Doing it yourself? Having someone else do it? Benefits? Outsourced it? Are we using that with technology at all or just outsourcing it? Okay. Doing that through ADP. Okay. I have a client here in Salem that just moved to ADP to handle their payroll. They've got maybe 85 employees. Okay, someone else is using UKG. I saw them at the NHRMA conference up in Alaska. And so someone else is using QuickBooks and Paychecks. Gusto. Okay. Someone has a payroll specialist, so doing a little bit more of that, perhaps in-house, maybe using a program. We've got Paylocity, CIS for City County Insurance Services, Springbrook for payroll. Okay, using Sage, got it. Okay, so there's some programs being used here, a variety of folks. So you have a broker. So that's on your benefits side. Is that right, Raquel? Free to use and offers an employee hotline and automated open enrollment process through their ease. Okay, nice. And when you say free to use and offers an employee hotline, is that just for all things benefits? Or is the employee hotline for other resources as well?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, they are commission based, so they get paid from the carriers. So the hotline, we switched from Hub International, which is a much larger organization, and they wanted, I think it was like $2,000 to implement Employee Benefits Navigator, and Hub didn't charge us to use the Ease platform, which is comparable. It's basically a web-based platform where the summary plan descriptions, options all get uploaded into one place.
Okay. Good, good,
Oh,
good.
and the hotline too, yes. They act as our benefits specialist. So employees can ask questions if they need assistance with, deductibles, copay questions, or even claims.
Okay.
Finding
Okay.
a provider, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm.
And before you were doing the hotline kind of piece, were people coming to you with their questions? Okay.
Yes.
And have you found, so kind of for the benefit of the group, did you find that, how many employees do you have?
We have 35.
Okay. So of the 35, because that's a pretty small group in the grand scheme of things, with 35, do you find that the majority of the people are doing well, comfortable using the platform, using the hotline? They're able to get what they need, and you only have a few people who might still be migrating towards you?
Well, I will say that this is our first year implementing the platform. We just made this switch during our renewal season earlier this year. And so there are, a little bit of instances where folks are more comfortable coming to me, but the feedback that I've gotten is that they love the intuitiveness of the platform, and the benefits guide that Hub created Heffernan, was 33 pages. It was interactive. folks love that. They've learned a lot more from versus what Hub gave us, which was like 3 pages. And so I highly recommend Heffernan if you're a smaller shop, because they basically act like your benefits team. And any questions that I can't answer, they are really responsive.
Nice. And that's exactly what we would, I think a good portion of us would be like, yes, please. Thank you. We like that.
Yes.
So, and part of the reason I'm asking is because, you know, the whole goal is when we implement something like that is that we want it to be helpful to the employee, right? It's a get for them, but it also turns into a benefit for us in terms of, is that saving you time? Is that putting
Yeah.
things more at ease? Do you get good reporting information about it's getting used, and that helps you out in other areas? So um, that's a win-win-win, right?
We used to actually, I sent out all the summary plan descriptions. It was kind of a scary email. And then I collected like signed, scanned enrollment and waive forms back. I had to track that, but Ease does that for me now. It basically sends everything to the carriers directly. So once the employee inputs their information, I don't have to go in and manually put it in. So it's a time saver there.
Wonderful, wonderful. So one of the things that I think about from a technology standpoint, you know, on your guys' behalf is like, what what problems, what challenges, where's the time spent that you could save time? What are you trying to solve, right? Where's the benefit of automating something or outsourcing something, right? What are what's important to the organization, right? So there's an element of what are the essential features? What reports are we trying to have? What data am I collecting to turn over to someone else? What's important to the organization, right? So, and to your guys' point, we're not using all the features of a particular uh, tool that we have. The nice thing about many of those is that they can be turned on at a later date as you grow or as your budget permits, as you become more sophisticated in needing all those other things, whatever that may be. The key is asking some of the right questions up front. And there are people out there. We used to have a staff member, Eric Wilson, and he owned his own business before coming to work for us. He is someone who will work through and walk through a number of tools and resources to help people find the kinds of things that they're looking for, because it can be very overwhelming. I don't even know what questions to necessarily ask. And so, what is out there? What is available to you? And how might that, you know, I don't want to pay more than what's that insurance commercial? I think it's the one with the bird. It's like, don't pay for more than you have to pay for, right? You want programs, you want services, but you don't want to pay for a bunch of bells and whistles you're not going to use, or at least not right now in some fashion, right? So being able to invest in what you're looking for and do your homework ahead of time. And it's not a fast process, right? And so that might even be something as simple as electronic signatures. Are we doing something like that, right? So, and maybe it's even, some of you said training's a big deal. Well, maybe it's a learning management system, right? Or an applicant tracking system. Is that important to you? How many people are we hiring? How many places, locations do we have? Do we have seasonal employees? What's going to make the most sense in terms of how much training do we need to do on an ongoing basis? Is that going to help? Is that going to help track things? Get out of the everything's in Excel. Is that, or even just moving to some kind of Excel is going to be a step up for you, and being able to have that. So think about what you're doing or how you're doing it. And is that some education on your part, or is that partnering with somebody? Is that finding out what programs they're using? Is there something to be able to be shared? Is there any opportunities there? Because depending on what all that looks like, Or because if we can do more to help ease up your time, ease up the stress, because this is about remembering to take care of yourself, right? Too, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your employees. You can't take care of the organization and do what it needs to be done. So when we think about success in your organization, what does that look like in terms of your position? What are your goals? What are your successes? What are your metrics in terms of being a solo HR practitioner? What does the organization expect of you? What do you expect of yourself? What do you do well? And what can use some improvement? Where do you excel in terms of got this one in the bag? This is where I struggle. Who do you know? Who can reach out? Who can help? Um, and I don't know if that's, education. I was talking to someone this morning, one of the coachees that I have, and his boss is like, maybe I want to go back to school and get my MBA. And he's like, talk to me about what that looks like. What does that mean? And why would you want to do that? Not not like why, more like tell me what the pros and cons of that is in terms of the time commitment and the what's the benefit and where are you planning on using that and going with that. So knowing what the goal is and why you want to do things. Not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. What else is on your plate? Where are you in life right now? But also what's the job? And what does the job need and what is the job taking from you? And how are you going to marry that with where are your boundaries? Can you say no to anything in terms of your work? Does everything have to be right now? Or how about, yes, I can do that, but it'll be after the new year. It'll be in Q1 or Q2. Are we mapping out work and projects and initiatives? Because sometimes I don't know, but I've worked with plenty of CEOs and general managers and executive directors, and everything is like, it's got to be now. It's like, you can't do it all now. There isn't even enough people or hours in the day to do it all now. We've got to plan it for everybody's sanity, right? So I don't know. Do we have life balance? Do we have boundaries? Are you working late at night? Are you working through your lunch? Do you make it home for dinner? Is this anybody's challenge? Do you take time off? Do you recharge? Do you have a, no after work communication policy for yourself? Is this anybody's challenge or you guys are all good? I see one little hand. Do you use your own EAP for support? I'm not preaching to you. I'm actually trying to talk myself, listen to myself, my own rules. Okay. So if any of you are just getting started, now's the time to put in good habits. Now, right now. And I'm not joking. I really am not joking because it doesn't take long to form bad habits. I will say, though, that outside of taking care of yourself is how are you doing at building your network in all sincerity, right? Whether at the local level, at the national level, do you have an online group that you participate with? Are you branching out beyond yourself? Who's in your network? So you guys tell me, who's in your network? Who, what, where, what are you doing outside of I need to branch out? I would love to know some online groups. So let's use the chat box. If you guys are comfortable, feel free to put your LinkedIn connections here. This can be the beginning of expanding your network with the people who are right here, if you're comfortable with that. I mean, feel free to introduce yourself. We already know that Shauna works in a public sector kind of environment. So if we've got others, there's your connection. We've got Joyce, who's with Joyce, is that Oregon Fire? Or do I have that all wrong? We've got property management that's commented here. I know several of you are part of the PHRMA, Portland Human Resource Management Association, right? See, I was right, Joyce. We've got people who, Shauna's down in the Eugene, Lane County area for HR. I'm here in the Salem area for HR. Morgan, heavy civil construction. Yes. We've got construction. I think we have, I was looking at the list. I think we also have utilities. What else was on the list? Oh, there we go, Grace. So we've got a variety of um, industries, um, different types of employers here. So this might be just the kind of opportunity to network with people and expand that, because especially when we talk about being an HR department of one, and maybe, I mean, I don't, I honestly don't know if there's an online group that's local that is for HR departments of one. Portland chapter of SHRM has a whole lot of special interest groups, SIGs, but I don't think that's one of them. Oh, good, April, Special Districts of Oregon. So I'm just wondering, and I know Special Districts has a kind of a roundtable. I think you guys meet quarterly that is just for special districts, HR people. And so that's a good network. But I don't know if there's anything that is, Shauna, do you know if there's anything that is HR departments of one that's any kind of special interest group?
Yeah, not like a listserv or anything like that. Um, I know that I mean this is just off the top of my head, but the Oregon SHRM, so the state council that oversees all of the local SHRM chapters, has a scholarship for HR departments of one, people who are HR departments of one, to attend annual conferences. I mean, they're Oregon SHRM's conferences. So you can look up Oregon SHRM for that. That's not a group, but it does, help HR departments of one and tie into other industry people.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether or not we have kind of accidentally stumbled upon something here, people, that there isn't something like that. And maybe we could create something like that for people who are departments of one, that is a resource that is, and I don't know what that means, but it just kind of is occurring to me that maybe that is, when we think about resources, a specific group targeting folks like yourself. So, because I'm not familiar with one, just HR in general. And there, sometimes at the end of the PowerPoint, there are a couple of hashtags of groups, and it's just scratching the surface. I'm part of a group that's across the country, that is of HR people of all different kinds of sizes. Um, so um, I think I'm gonna noodle on that and think about that and see whether or not um, that isn't something that couldn't be out there. So stay tuned. And especially since I have all your guys' emails, since you signed up, I can reach out to a couple people and I can forward some other ideas onto you. So keep putting things in the chat about what you're part of, because here are some thought process. And part of it's also whether you're on, and I didn't update this because I think it's now got to be X, not Twitter. And there's Blue Sky now in terms of uh, a resource. Uh, but also think about then from an education standpoint, um, there can be, uh, there are educational programs that like the certification groups that sometimes get together even after their certification's over. There are colleges and universities that will have certification study groups, things like that. Sometimes people will join study groups for certification, but they're not actually going to sit for the exam. They just want to participate in getting the education. So sometimes you can participate in those kinds of things as well. But if you're really interested in certification, there are a couple of different ones that I listed here that you can participate, not just SHRMs, but HRCIs. There's also Academy to Innovate HR. And if you're part of a training association, there's ATD that's part of that too. And of course, there are others as well, but those are just the first personal ones that I put. And then I just put a couple of notes about building our skills, continuing around interpersonal communication, how important that is. I don't know about you, but this is where my nemesis is. This is not my funnest part of the job in terms of budgeting and putting them together. And it's just not my favorite part of the job at all. But being able to understand how they all work, working them all together, coming together, because for my work, it has to be more than just the HR budget. It's the whole 9 yards. But being able to think about what does that look like? And again, when we think about knowing your value and being able to communicate your value to others and how you are not a cost center, that you actually bring value in a variety of ways. I put a couple of notations in there for you for that as well. Because yes, it's important to think about where the organization is going, what's happening in HR, what you can bring to the table. I look at it in the way my ex-boss who founded the company. Think about the news when the news comes on and they always have that banner or that I always call it a ticker tape. I'm not sure why, that has the additional information, other news that's going on. I'm always paying attention to environmental scanning, everything that's going on in the world, let alone regionally and locally, because that's going to tell me what's happening in business and what's going on in the world in industries. I pay attention like, so how's that going to impact HR? How's that going to impact my clients? How's that going to impact? Because then do I need to be doing something, seeing something, saying something, learning something? Do I need to go find out more about that? Because that's going to impact us. Is that going to damage my business? Is that going to help my business? Do I need to be educating clients about that? So I'm always paying attention and scanning. Where do you get your news from? What's going on from an industry standpoint? Because not only am I asking you to take care of you and protect your time, what is it you need to educate yourself for so that you can take care of the business and bring value, not just HR, but if you're talking business talk, if you're bringing industry specific ideas and suggestions and how it's going to impact the business, how it's going to impact your CEO or general manager or whomever, it's important to remember, yes, it's your job, but it's also how am I making an impact for others? That's not just HR speak. That's a whole bigger kind of conversation. And we each can do that in a variety of ways. So I think knowing your business, your industry, your market, your competition, knowing what's going on in the world and tying those all together, understanding your numbers, um, the dollars, understanding the competition and where they sit, where you sit, that's you taking things to the next level. That does mean paying attention to things. That means asking some questions, but that means also having an understanding of how your organization views HR. Because then, how do you want to? I don't really like this phrase, but how do you want to play the game? Because part of that is if they view HR in one way, you've got to show them we're more than that in a variety of ways. So, and know yourself. Where's your comfort zone? What are your skill sets? What do you do really well? And where do you need to push yourself outside the comfort zone? Because if you're not really good at public speaking, you're going to have to get good at a portion of that so that you can get in front of others to demonstrate you know what you're talking about in more ways than one, and they need to see it and hear it and have it revisited time and time again to build your credibility, because your credibility and consistently doing things and sharing things is going to keep reinforcing that in terms of the knowledge base. So it's not just knowing HR and doing good stuff, it's also elevating yourself to those that look at that as a resource. So, questions, comments, observations, please pay attention to the chat. People are giving you their links so that you can network with each other, because hopefully there was something here that was helpful to you or made you think about something. Because truly, what I'm hoping that you walk away with is there something you need to start working on? Is there someone that you will share information with, or that it will cause a conversation with others inside your organization? Because hopefully something started germinating for you. So this is where we kind of do our official time is over, but people can hang out and have questions, share, continue to network as well. So I encourage you to do that. And if you have questions on what we talked about or even what we didn't talk about, that's good too. But just so you know, I definitely will send out all of you who came the PowerPoint. People who weren't here will get an opportunity to listen to the program, but they don't necessarily get the PowerPoint because they weren't here and in person, right? And thank you to those of you. First of all, thanks for coming. Hope you enjoy the holidays. Thank you to those of you who had your cameras on so I could see you and your bright, shiny faces. Otherwise, questions, comments, observations, chit chat. Otherwise, I'll call it a official on the recording side of things. Glad you were part of this one.